Hey y'all, I'm Sohan. We're here back at West China Tea House for another episode of Gong Fu Tea Cha. Today, we're going to talk about what teas to drink when. And this is a question I get asked a lot. People are always like, how do you know what tea to drink? Well, you kind of have to decide. It's just like thinking about what food you're going to eat, but there's a little bit more consideration that we can put into it if we want to dive a little bit into it, and you know that we do. So, we're going to talk today about what teas to drink when. What does when mean? We use that word all the time, but it's oddly vague. So let's break it down a little bit. We can think about what teas to drink when in the year. So for example, seasonally, what teas are good to drink in what season? This is a pretty well-trod territory. People tend to say, well, you want to drink cooling teas when it's hot and warming teas when it's cool. That makes a lot of sense. What are cooling and warming teas? In Chinese medicine, we'll talk about something being cooling even if it's hot, or warming even if it's cool. For example, something like red meat would be warming, and then something like bitter melon would be cooling. And so they're not talking about the temperature, they're talking about the effect in your body. And they're not even necessarily talking about the temperature change in your body. It's not like you put a thermometer in your mouth and your temperature is going down. They're talking about the nature of the flow of qi and other forces through your body. So it's a little bit esoteric, but it still applies. People generally tend to align with these same themes as far as cooling or warming feelings from the tea goes, even if they don't have any background in Chinese medicine. So here we have some cooling teas. Notice they're green in color, they're white in color. These are lower oxidized teas. Green tea is a prime example of this. Sheng pu'er is a prime example of this, especially fresh sheng. Those are very cooling teas, and they have a cooling effect on the body and on the constitution. And then over here, we have some more warming teas. Warming teas are either oxidized, roasted, fermented, or some combination of those things. And all of those have the net result of making the tea darker in color. The leaves get darker, the soup gets darker, the flavor becomes more mellow, and generally they have a more warming effect on the body. So I'm talking about red teas, roasted oolongs, chou pu'er. Those are all any kind of chA, any kind of fermented tea, tend to be more on the warming side of the spectrum. And then there's other things to consider, like green tea is fresh in the spring. If you're trying to pick what tea to drink and you've got a couple of ounces of green tea, that green tea is not getting better sitting there, it's getting worse. So you might want to drink that because it's fresh now and you might as well enjoy it when it's in season. Likewise, you want to wait for certain teas to age. If there's a tea that you've got and it's still tasting a little bit fresh, maybe it's a fresh sun-dried red tea or a fresh white tea or fresh sheng pu'er, and it still has some of that qing ca wei or the taiyang wei, the sunshine flavor or the green grass flavor. These are these notes of kind of chlorophyll or of the process that remain for a couple of months after the tea is finished and will eventually fade over time, and they're generally not considered desirable, that kind of cloying chlorophyll taste, or the dui wei, the pile flavor of fresh fermented tea, like pu'er tea that's been fermented can have what's called the dui wei, the pile flavor, which is a little bit of a more musty sort of taste that will go away. They call it a chA wei, kind of a mixed flavor. It's a little bit hard to describe, but it's what you get when you have fresh chou pu'er that's just been finished and you drink it and you're like, oh, this could go a couple months. Likewise, if the tea has traveled recently, especially traveled by air and has been changing pressure, changing temperatures, you might want to let the tea sit for a while. So thinking about the tea, not only the time of year, but what the tea has been through. Is it fresh and good to drink fresh? Is it fresh and we don't want to drink it fresh? We want to drink it aged. Those are good considerations to make. Another thing to think about, or that people often ask about or mean when they say when to drink a given tea, is what time of day. People are always asking me first, a question I get all the time, when is tea time in China? Is there a certain time of day that people drink tea? No, they drink tea all day long. Everyone's different. China's huge. People all do all kinds of different things. They probably have customs in certain places that they don't. They definitely have customs in certain places around when to drink tea that they don't in other places. But in a general sense, average, pick them out of a hat Chinese person, they're probably going to drink tea all day long. At a certain point, they might cut themselves off from caffeine. And that's kind of a lot of what people are asking when they ask what time of day do Chinese people drink tea, because they're asking, what time of day should I stop drinking tea so the tea does not keep me awake? And you can't really answer that question for someone else. You have to answer that question for yourself. But you can say certain teas are more stimulating in general, or more relevantly, certain teas I have found more stimulating when I have drank them. A great example of this is sheng pu'er. Sheng pu'er people generally find very stimulating. You might not want to drink a sheng pu'er late at night. I thought that I was Mr. Big Shot, and I did that a couple months ago. Actually, me and one of our team members drank a little ball of smoke bomb, a little dragon ball of smoke bomb, which is just a gushu sheng pu'er, ancient tree sheng pu'er. And I mean, I drink tea all day long every day, and it does not affect my sleep. But this one kept me up. We finished the pot at 10 p.m. I went home, he went home, came back the next day, and we were both there starting the shift, and we both looked haggard. And I was like, Nick, did you sleep? And he was like, no, I didn't sleep. I got to sleep at like 7 a.m. I was like, yeah, I got to sleep at like 4 a.m. So you never know. Sometimes they catch you by surprise, but I definitely won't be drinking smoke bombs specifically late at night again, unless my goal is to stay up all night. So now I know. I wouldn't have guessed, but now I know. And so generally speaking, you'll want to drink teas that you find less stimulating earlier in the day, unless it's your goal to party. You're trying to party and you want to stay up all night, then by all means, drink something really strong, drink something really stimulating. People also tend to like certain teas at certain times of day. This is just a general trend. It's not a rule, and you want to investigate this on your own. But for me, speaking for myself, I love green teas first thing in the morning because of that fresh taste, that bright, opening, green, waking up kind of feel to them. And not necessarily because they're the most caffeinated teas, but because I just like that green feeling and that fragrance and that grassiness early in the morning. Likewise, I tend to like to drink an aged white tea late at night, or a fermented tea late at night, like these ones, not only because I find them calming from a stimulating versus calming perspective, from an energetic perspective, but also because the earthiness and the sweetness I find of chA and white tea respectively are really great ways to come down from the day. So it's really nice when you're thinking about it. The tea is not just the taste, it's not just the smell, it's not just the chi either. It's all of these things. It's a holistic thing. And so when you're considering what tea you want to consume, those are great things to consider. So we talked about when in the year, we've talked about when in the day. There's also when in your life with respect to life events. For example, in Chinese culture, it's traditional to have a tea ceremony. And you notice I don't use that word a lot, but this really is a ceremony because its purpose is symbolic, called chA. And you serve tea to your in-laws. The bride and the groom serve tea to their parents and future in-laws, where all the parents are lined up in a row, all four of them. And the bride and groom take turns serving tea to all the parents and addressing their parents as mother and father, addressing their in-laws as mother and father for the first time, and making this offering of sharing tea, serving the older generation. It's a beautiful ceremony. I've had the privilege of conducting multiple of these. It is something we do here at the tea house, and we also do for people's weddings who want to participate in this very traditional ritual of Chinese culture that is part of matrimony. And so you want to serve a red tea for that. Why? Because Chinese weddings are red. That is the color of marriage in China. And it's the color of auspiciousness. And so the symbolism of the color red, you want to bring that yang energy into the marriage, into the wedding, and bring that for auspicious energy. So symbolic purposes, for example, when we were celebrating the Year of the Dragon, the Chinese New Year of the Dragon, we served teas that had dragon in their name. This tea is called Dragon Well. That's a good tea with dragon energy. You could say, well, it's just the name. Sure, it is just the name, but it's there. It's part of the tea. Likewise, I might drink a tea that we call rain butter when it's raining out. I drink thunderstruck when there's lightning. So there's a lot of subjective movement in all of this, what tea you're choosing for when. You can have lots of different reasons, but with respect to life events, generally red teas for weddings. I like to give tea cakes as a gift to people who are getting married or on birthdays. For example, this is 2015 Gong Bing. If I knew someone who was getting married and they and their partner met in 2015, this would be a perfect gift for them because it's the year that they met. And I would tell them, this is your wedding gift. Every year, it's going to get more and more valuable. So I want you to only drink this on your wedding, on your anniversary. And then you have 50 years worth of tea. If you're doing 7-gram doses every anniversary, you've got another 50 years before you've drank that whole cake. And those last couple pots will be very, very valuable pots. That tea will be a very valuable, 60-something-year-old tea by that time. And the tea that you were drinking will have greatly increased in value. And it's a nice, beautiful ritual to bring you back year over year. So we've got time of year, time of day, life events. Another thing that you want to think about is, who are you serving tea to? Is it just you? Well, if it's just you, then in addition to considering how stimulated you want to be, how focused, how calm you want to be, consider, is there a tea that you're working with? Is there a tea that you're practicing with? Is there a tea that someone served it to you once and it was amazing, and then you brought it home and tried to serve it and you just couldn't get it right? That might be a good tea to drink. Are you serving tea with other people? Well, if you're serving tea to other people, then you're going to want to consider, what do they like to drink? You could ask them, what kind of tea do you feel like drinking? Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't have a lot of experience with tea. In which case, I recommend choosing something that is fragrant, like an oolong or an aged white tea, something that is sweet, something that is mellow, something that doesn't have a lot of bitterness, because some people who are only used to drinking sweetened beverages or unused to drinking bitter things like tea, what is not very bitter to you might be very bitter to them. And so when I'm introducing people to tea and I don't know what they want to drink, I'll often opt for teas that are fragrant and not bitter right at the front, because those will help to bring them into the experience in a way that they can enjoy. Also, when you're serving when do you serve a really, really expensive tea? Well, I wouldn't serve it when I was, playing on my computer and just drinking tea passively on the side. I would wait to serve that tea until I was serving my friends or my family, or until I had the time to sit by myself and pay attention and savor that tea and really make a whole occasion of it. And so those are some very basic considerations with respect to serving tea to yourself or to other people. They seem like kind of, common sense things, but it's the answer to the question. Another way to consider what tea to serve is, what tea did you just serve? Let's say that you are serving tea to others, or just sitting by yourself drinking multiple teas in a row. What tea did you just serve? Conventional wisdom says start with the lightest flavored teas and work up to the stronger flavored teas. And that's a fine rule of thumb. But actually, there's a lot more nuance to it, because picking the tea that you want to drink is going to depend on what tea you just had. If I had a really rich, sweet tea like a charcoal roasted oolong or an aged white tea or something like that, then the next tea that I might want to be a red tea that has a little bit more astringency and a little bolder, more nutty kind of flavor. Or I might want to do a sheng pu'er that's got that bitterness, that's going to be a good contrast with the sweetness of that other tea. Or if I do a shu pu'er or a hei cha that has those deep earthy flavors, maybe I want to do like a fresh white tea that's going to have a sharp contrast. Even though I'm going from a very dark tea to a very light tea, a very strong tea to a very soft tea, sometimes that contrast can really work, even though it's not what people conventionally do in that particular order. But that brings us to kind of the heart of what makes us choose different teas. And that's how we want to feel. A good way to think about teas, serving teas, drinking teas, and choosing teas is the same as when you think about when you're DJing. Let's say you're at a gathering with your friends, or even if you're alone at home, picking what song you want to listen to, what playlist you want to listen to, is a function of what kind of mood you're in. What do you feel like? You might not be able to explain why you feel like hearing this song, but you just do. You crave it. You desire it. Maybe you do know. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm feeling sad, so I'm going to play some sad songs. I'm feeling like I want to go dance. Like I'm trying to get like amped up for a night out, so I'm going to put on some dance music. I want to have a little dance party by myself. Tea is the same way, or the way you would pick an outfit. You're feeling a particular way and you pick an outfit to reflect that. Tea is the same way. We can choose a tea based on the mood that we're in, or based on the mood that we want to create. And there's a progression to that. It's just like playing a set list. If you're a musician, picking your set list so that there's peaks and valleys, and you're taking people on a journey. Choosing what teas you're going to serve really is an art. And there's no one who can tell you how to do it. The only way that you can gain that feeling and that sense is through experience, through taking the time to drink different teas and find out how do they feel to you. And so when you're serving tea to other people, picking what teas that you like and you're comfortable with because you have developed that relationship with them. And that you're going to be able to convey that aspect of that tea, that thing that you like about that tea. You'll be good at expressing that to other people because you have a relationship with that tea. For me, I'll talk about how certain teas make me feel. I already talked a little bit about green tea. This is Longjing. This is an amazing tea. The qi is very, very strong, very enveloping, very consuming. And I like to drink this when I have the time and the energy to really focus on what I'm doing, to really be present with the tea. It's not a good talking tea. I'll serve this tea and everyone stops talking. Everyone goes very inward. And so that's based on my experience. Nobody told me that about this tea. These are my observations about this tea because I've served this tea many, many times. And I've been like, oh, this tea really makes people shut up. So if I'm in a mood where I'm seeking that tranquility and that quiet and stillness, this is a great tea for me to serve. And in a general sense, green teas do have that quality, although they are very bright and enlivening and can be very stimulating and have this kind of optimistic feel to them. They are also very still. And I find that they're really good for focusing and for being still and to finding that peace and tranquility. For example, if I want to meditate, green tea is a great tea to meditate with. Sheng Pu'er, which is a type of green tea, also great for meditating with. When I think about oolongs, I think of levity, I think of liveliness, I think of giggling and talking and gregarious energy. And this is my experience when I'm serving oolongs. And a lot of what I'm saying, I have a little bit different perspective than most people because I've spent so many years serving tea to I don't know how many people, thousands and thousands for sure, maybe tens of thousands. I have no idea how many people I've served tea to. But when you're serving tea, you're not just serving tea, you're also observing and feeling the effect of that tea on the group. I'm gonna pour myself a little water because I'm talking a lot. So some of these observations, whereas someone who's not an actual tea merchant might have only tasted a given tea once or twice, a lot of these teas I've had tasted and served dozens or even hundreds of times. And I've been able to observe the effect on hundreds of people. So when I'm talking about serving oolongs and getting this juicy kind of gregarious, chatty, maybe even joking, laughing energy, that's my observation of being at an event like Community, serving tea at Halloween, and I serve an oolong because that's what I feel like drinking, and all of a sudden the conversation changes. All of a sudden, there's a lot more laughter, there's a lot more joking, the volume of people's conversations goes up, the topics tend to change. Likewise, with red tea, I find red tea almost has this kind of aggressive energy. The conversations tend to get political, where people get really into their bodies, especially with like ultraviolet, gamma ray, these purple red teas. People want to dance, they want to move, they have this very motivated, moving energy. They want to discuss. People start leaning forward in their conversations, and there's just more heat. And that's an observation for red teas just across the board that I've noticed, is that kind of fiery energy. Just like green teas have this cool spring, morning, new, youth energy, and oolongs have this kind of bubbly, juicy, fun, a little bit psychedelic energy. And then red teas have this much more kind of yang, motivating, almost aggressive, focusing energy. And I'll serve teas, in an order that reflects that. So for example, if you are serving tea to people who are, maybe they're strangers to each other, that might be a great order to go in, because that new feeling of that green tea is they're doing something new, and then helping them to get into the space and introducing them to this new thing. And then you serve an oolong tea that gets them talking, and then you serve a red tea that gets them to talk, go a little bit deeper, be a little bit more gregarious, a little bit more extroverted, so to speak. And then again, I mentioned it already, but I find the fermented teas to be very grounding. What does that mean? It's like touching the ground, touching grass, sitting on the ground, feeling in your body, feeling in the space, feeling when you're grounded, you don't feel like things are moving you as much. And so that might be a good progression right after that red tea to do, because people are starting to push on each other a little bit harder energetically. They're starting to get into deeper discussions. They're starting to move. They're starting to dance. They're starting to, whether literally or figuratively. And then that grounding energy of a Hei Cha or a Shu Pu'er can help bring them back to center. And then white teas. Fresh white teas have this very soft, calming, almost sort of youthful energy to them, like the silver needle. And then as the white teas get older and older, they take on this really deep, nurturing, almost maternal, very calming, very relaxing, and again, having this very nurturing, maternal, feminine kind of energy to them. And I will oftentimes finish a tea tasting with white tea, especially aged white tea, because it's just so sweet and it's so dynamic and it's so complex. And it does have this very holding energy that really holds people in a really gentle and sweet way. And so I will oftentimes finish with that. And also the contrast of that very sweet white tea with all the other teas that you previously drank is really great. A few other notes that I'll give is purple teas have a purple vibe. What is that like? It's hard to describe. It's a little bit electric. When you make a purple red tea, like ultraviolet, for example, you do get this kind of sensual energy, the somatic quality of the red tea and that electric quality of the purpleness gives you this kind of sensual, sinuous energy. It's a good dancing tea. It's a good party tea. We had a party that we named after the tea, ultraviolet. It was a black white party. It was a dance party. We were up till 6 a.m. It was great. So purple teas have their own vibe. And what is that vibe? Again, it's hard to articulate. Don't take my word for it. Drink some purple teas. Try a bunch of different ones. We've got this purple sheng pu'ers, and there's purple shu pu'ers. There's purple red tea and there's purple white tea. If you try a bunch of different teas that are all purple, they can be different merchants, different styles, different regions. But if you drink a bunch of teas that are all purple, eventually you will triangulate, what does purpleness mean to you? Same with when you talk about ancient tree tea. This is a Bing of Yako Village sheng pu'er. Some teas come from older trees, and the tea from older trees is more valuable. It's highly prized. We call that gushu cha, ancient tree tea for pu'er. We call that gushu cha. Those teas have more qi. They have stronger qi. The qi is different. How is it different? It's very difficult to say. We're talking about this very nuanced, very subjective world, which is how you feel when you drink a particular tea. But I will say that there is a gushu vibe. And I know when I'm like, I want to drink a gushu cha right now. I don't care if it's gushu white tea, like, well, we don't have that one yet, right? Yeah. I don't care if it's gushu red tea, like infrared, or gushu sheng pu'er, like immortal dew, or gushu shu pu'er, like black rain. I just know that I want something from ancient tree. That's the vibe I'm really going for now. And same with purpleness, same with a lot of these other attributes, even down to the place where I'm like, I want some Duoyi Village tea right now. I'm craving the vibe of Duoyi Village, this highest patch on Nanhua Mountain. That could be sheng pu'er, it could be shu pu'er, it could be red tea. I just really want that particular vibe. I probably won't ever be able to articulate what the vibe of the different patches on Nanhua Mountain are, but they're different and I do know them. And then lastly, I've noticed that I get a lot of sleepy style vibes from Fujuan. This is a brick of Fujuan. This is 1999, fancy Fujuan. Fujuan is a type of fermented tea that is made in both Hunan and Shanxi. It has a special mold called Erodium cristatum, which is called Jinhua golden flower in Chinese. You crack open a brick of this tea, it's always bricks. You crack open a brick of this tea and on the inside are these little golden dots that look like pollen. And if you take a magnifying glass and look at them, they're little golden spheres. And for some reason, that tea, Hei Chas in general are like calming, grounding, but Fujuans get into being actually sleepy, as people have been like, I feel like I'm swimming through molasses right now. I feel like I'm moving through molasses because the effect of this tea. As soon as people will drink something like cashew butter, for example, people will drink cashew butter and they'll immediately feel this like slow motion feeling from the tea. And I've had that experience with chA, especially Fujuans, many, many times. And so I'll often recommend that. Also, when people are like, I have a headache, I've got a stomach ache, what do I drink? I'll say chAs. My general answer to the question, what tea is healing? I'll say chAs for physical healing, and then aged white teas for emotional healing. When people are distraught or they're feeling emotionally out of sorts, then aged white tea helps to fix that. And when people are feeling physical discomfort, either from a headache or inflammation or digestive issues especially, chA tends to, in my observation, both in myself and in other people, to help a lot of those issues. So I hope that helps you on your tea journey. The most important thing that I want you to take away from this is that you learn how to serve what tea when, the same way that a DJ learns how to play what song when. They're going to choose the song they're playing based on first they have to be familiar with the song. If they don't know the song, then they can't decide that it would be a good song for this moment. And so developing that familiarity, listening to the song over and over again, seeing how it makes you feel, same as drinking a tea over and over again, to see how it makes you feel, see how it makes other people feel. For example, there's teas that have strong associations for me that I've built up over years, because I've drank this tea for 15 years and it's got all these memories that come back to me. Whether I can just conjure them into my mind or remember them, the memories are there and they're attached to this tea. Maybe this tea reminds me of my grandpa. I got to serve Longjing to a gentleman the other day who was from Hangzhou, where it's from. He said he hadn't been back to Hangzhou in more than 10 years. And he was telling me stories of when he remembered when he was little. He smelled the tea and he's like, it reminds me of when I was little and my parents and we would take me to the Longjing tea mountain and we would buy the fresh leaves from the farmers. I mean, not like this, fresh, wet leaves just been picked. And we would go home and we'd cook them ourselves in our kitchen, in the wok in our kitchen, because it's cheaper that way. And he said, smelling these leaves in the gaiwan reminds me of when I was little, smelling that. And that's such a beautiful, powerful experience to be able to have from something as simple as a little plant. And so nothing that I can say here is going to be more meaningful to you than the associations that you have or that you develop with a given tea and your relationship with that tea. And so just like a DJ picking songs, just like a fashion designer picking colors from a palette, or an interior designer picking furniture or picking colors, what tea you serve at any given time is really going to have to do with your relationship to that tea and how you feel at that moment and what it is that you're trying to convey. And the bigger your repertoire of teas that you are familiar with and that you know how to steep grows, the more that you're going to be able to express yourself through your choice of tea. And not just express yourself, but the more that you're going to be able to share that expression and engender some aspect of that expression in the people that you're serving. And really, serving tea, TJing, some people call it, serving tea to a group of people and being the one who's deciding what teas to serve when is a fine art. And you can create and curate a whole magical experience through the choice of the teas that you decide to do. So I wish you luck on your journey, exploring the teas of the world. There are so many, you could do it all the time for the rest of your life and never know them all. So go out there, try some teas, enjoy them. The ones that you like are the ones that you're going to want to deepen your relationship with and serve. The ones that challenge you are also the ones that you're going to want to deepen your relationship with and serve and practice. And as you grow that familiarity and you grow that repertoire, then it will come naturally, like second nature, deciding what tea to serve. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Gong Fu Tea Cha.